Hey guys, welcome to Approach the Nerd. It is me, Maria Park, ATN, with my friend and fellow YouTube content creator, Joe from Joe's Geek Show. Make sure to like and subscribe. His stuff's in the description. You know the drill. And this is the first episode of Trash Comics on ATN. Now, if you don't know what that is, we basically take comic books that have problematic storylines and we talk trash about them. Hence, Trash Comics. And in this episode, we are going to break down and make fun of the wonderfulness that is Avengers episode, and I'm saying episode 200. It really is issue 200, but is it really an issue? Because I cannot believe that anybody in their right mind wrote a storyline like this. So there's that. So let's break it down. What happened in issue 200, Joe? Let's just give them a summary here, and then we'll just dissect it.
Well, I mean, issue 200 is definitely considered by most to be one of, if not the worst comic book storyline to ever come from Marvel. I mean, even so, as much as we trash on things like One More Day or Sins of the Past, there are just elements about this particular comic and this particular issue where you're just kind of like, what were you tripping on that day when you guys wrote this particular book? So it begins effectively with us finding out that Ms. Marvel, aka Carol Danvers, she's somehow 9 months pregnant. She's giving birth. She gets this tiny little baby, and then something's wrong with this kid because he starts growing really fast, really rapidly. And then over the course of the book, I mean, there's some other weird stuff going on, some time displacement issues, which kind of come to find out it's because of this guy. And when he's fully grown, he explains himself that he actually comes from like this pocket dimension and he wanted to exist on our Earth, but the only way that he was going to be able to do that is if he had some kind of natural birthing process. So he chose Carol Danvers effectively to be his mother into his new body, and then grows up and things don't work out so well. He's got to go back to the pocket dimension, and Carol goes along with him. And that is
that's a summary
in a nutshell in terms of the summary. Now we could probably start to get into why the whole thing is, forgive me if you need to bleep this out, fucked up.
Well, this is ATN. We don't blip out the cuss words, especially when they're warranted. So there is so many issues with this. So many issues with this comic. We won't talk about Carol first. We're going to talk about the smaller things, like the fact that the rest of the Avengers are trash. So let me explain why they're trash. If you woke up one day and you discovered you were pregnant, and the issue actually takes place, I think it was like a week later or a couple of days later, where she's actively in the labor. And she's giving birth, and you see Captain America, Hawkeye, Bees, a bunch of people are outside the door pacing, saying, is the baby here yet? The baby here yet? And they're like, I wonder what's happening. Carol said she doesn't even know how she got pregnant. She doesn't even know who the father is. So they go through this whole disclaimer of Carol has no idea how she got knocked up, how she became 9 months pregnant within a few days and is already actively in labor. And it's a labor that made me jealous. As someone who has gone through 18 and a half hours of labor, I was very upset with the lack of birth contractions and pain. Well, I won't say contractions, but birth pains that she had.
Keep pushing.
She's like, I'm not.
Pushing. I'm just laying here, yo.
And of course, Dr. Blake's like, but that's impossible, which we all know that is really Thor. But he's like, that's impossible. Then how is this happening? And we're like, the bigger question is, why are you guys completely okay with the fact that she told you that she was pregnant and she doesn't know how she's pregnant because she didn't sleep with anybody and she doesn't know who the daddy is? That implies sexual assault. And then on top of that, the baby keeps aging. The baby keeps aging. And when the baby is born, all the Avengers are like, oh, he's so cute. Chip off the old block. And I'm like, what block? You don't know what the dad is. I'm like,
And now, to be fair, Hawkeye was pretty taken aback.
He was a little what's happening?
The whole thing, and he kind of is suspecting of this kid from the jump. especially when he starts aging, and like by the age of what most would consider 5. Like,
yeah, when he was 2 years old, within an hour
like the
after birth.
intellectual intelligence of like greater than Einstein, or even heck, the Beast is in the room. This kid's obviously 30 times smarter, and yeah, no, and it's just all the elements like that. But yeah, you're right. Just having the Avengers, for the most part, as a collective whole, just being like, yeah, no, this is great. We have a baby in the Avengers mansion, and I never thought that would happen, but this is great. Wanda and Vision are talking about like the miracles of like childbirth and being human and stuff like that,
and how they can't have children, and how Wanda's like, but I had
right.
It's like, okay, we're having a moment of clarity for this other couple that can't have a child, but this woman literally just told you, I don't know who the baby's daddy is, and I don't know how I got pregnant. It's like, and then,
well, and that's kind of the thing too, is they keep referring to the kid as her
son, yeah.
Child, and Carol Danvers is like, that is
not mine.
That is not mine,
my child,
because of the physical impossibility of everything that has just transpired. The minute that kid started aging, like they should have been like, pointing arrows, blasters. Cap should have been ready to cap that shield. I mean, if at that age, 2, 3, whatever, like this kid started aging up, started talking like that, I'd be like, all right, you are clearly not human. What's up? And then like one of the bigger aspects too that always got to me about it too was when this kid was like, when he was still a kid and stuff, and he starts asking like, hey, can you give me a list of these materials so I can build this machine? And they're all like,
No, not even that. It's like they were like, Captain America was interrogating him, right? And he asked for a list. And he's like, well, first tell me where you come from. And he's like, all right. He's like, where'd you come from? My mother. Okay. And how did your mother conceive you? My father. Oh, who is your father? Me. Yeah. And he's like, we're getting nowhere. I'm like, no, he literally just told you the truth. He literally just told you the truth. And so Iron Man's like, well, let's just give him what he wants, and then we'll let him play around and tinkle with the stuff to build his whatever, and then we'll get the information. I'm like, what? I'm like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah, for this comic to have effectively worked the way it did, almost every single Avenger had to be collectively stupid. Like they
were collectively dumb
out the window. Like even when all the time displacement stuff started happening, like, people were walking out of a subway and they're like in the 1940s or 1840s, and, lady walks out inside and it's, freaking prehistoric times and shit, because, over at Avengers Mansion at some point, like, the T-Rexes start attacking and spaceships start coming down, and it's just freaking, it's anarchy. And, what was it? And Hawkeye, like, makes, one little comment or so about, oh, hey, it's just got to be the kid. And Captain America's like, well, we don't know that for sure.
Yeah.
And then later on in the
yes,
issue,
we do.
That was me. It's, my name's Marcus. That was me.
That was me.
I did it.
Well, there were other little tiny things along this path, like with the time variances, because we watch Loki now, we get to call them variants. So
yeah, TVA dropped the ball on that one, right?
Yeah. Well, I think it's really funny, like you were talking about the woman that went to go check the mailbox, and she gets like the publisher clearinghouse thing out of the mail, and like she thought she was gonna win like this like cruise or trip around the world, and she got all excited, and she turns around and she's literally in the prehistoric era, and like she just passes out with her mail. But yeah, it's like they have all of this stuff going on. Like it literally simulates like a Godzilla attack, but with a T-Rex, or Jurassic Park attack, basically. And then you got all of these like B-planes and fighters, and all from all different eras. You've got Iron Man talking about, now I just need King Kong, and then everything's complete, which is great. We have our subtle racism from Beast, of all people, which shocked me.
Pocahontas.
So we have Native Americans coming in. They're coming for a raid. And he's like, it's the day. It's Pocahontas Day, and I'm like, what? Didn't anyone tell you it's Pocahontas Day? I'm like, okay, Beast, go sit down. And it was like all of this subtle stuff. But then on top of that, you have the main plot, which is actually treated more like a subplot of Carol literally locked herself in her room. She didn't want anything to do with this abomination. You got Simon coming in saying, oh, well, my eyes don't work the way people think, but I can see that you're scared. Of course I'm scared. I had a baby like Sigourney Weaver had in Aliens, an alien inside of her in the second Alien movie. I don't know how it got there. I don't know why it's there. This is creepy. That kid is not mine because I didn't make this kid. And who has a 9-month pregnancy in a few days? What is wrong with you people? And they're still like, oh, but you really need to visit your son. What is wrong with you? Like, what is wrong with you? And then we get to the revelation from Marcus. So Marcus is the son of Immortus, who Thor had fought, and I think it was 4 episodes. I think in his comic, like I want to say it was like issue 292. I can't remember. It might have been 297. It was somewhere in there. It was close to when this was released. And then he breaks down the story that, well, one day my dad was running around Limbo, which is where I'm from, and we're just walking around, la la la. Then he's like, you know what? I'm going to get me a human woman and I'm going to, bring her to my realm because, why not? And so he creates this little bubble of time, this little time bubble for her to exist in where they could like procreate, and he creates, of course, Marcus. But what he didn't understand is that a regular human cannot be sustained forever in this little time bubble. And I'm going to get to this in a second because this is a very interesting question. So, of course, Marcus's mother got zapped away back to Earth, never to be seen again. And then, of course, Thor was defeated with Kang. Not Thor. Immortus was defeated along Kang in Thor's book. So, of course, he's gone. So his dad's gone and his mom's gone. So we got little Marcus, who's like now grown Marcus, running around, trying to figure out what to do by himself with nobody. So then he decides, you know what? I'm going to get me a woman because if I was born here, maybe I could be born on Earth through a human vessel. But I need someone strong enough to handle my wonderful essence. Who could that be? Oh, look, it's Captain Marvel. So what I'll do is I'll just pull her out of the plane she's flying in and then bring her to my realm. But unlike my dad, who used his machine to brainwash my mom into being with him, I would never do that. 3 weeks later. So I kind of did that.
Yeah, well, he uses the term, he's like, yeah, I wanted to win you over. Like, I wanted to really woo you. So I'm bringing all this stuff. And then it's like,
you got Shakespeare write sonnets and stuff for you.
Yeah. A little bit.
I just use a machine. I just turn, instead of putting up to 5, I put it up to 2, of the brainwashing mechanism. And then me and you just kind of.
It's still you making the decisions. Yeah, I slipped some stuff in your drink a little bit.
It's it's a 1/4 of a roofie. It's not the whole thing. And so.
Exactly.
So then she ends up sleeping with him, and then he transfers his essence. That's how they describe it. His essence inside of her. And then he just disappears. He disappears. And the machine apparently wiped Carol's memories and sent her back to Earth. Hence, now she's in labor with Marcus. Now, this is where it also gets extremely effing creepy. So our girl decides, maybe I should go see him. I'm scared though, because what if I see him, I'm going to feel this like repulsed need to run away and fear and escape. And then she opens the door and she's like, oh, I know you, and weirder, I'm strongly attracted to you. And I'm like, now you have to understand, Marcus.
Very interesting in this book. Very interesting.
Marcus actually says, hi, Mom. And he's also a grown man wearing a diaper. I have to put that in there. He's literally a grown man because nobody got him clothes when he started aging. He's literally in the same diaper he was in at birth. And I'm going to tell you, at one point when he was 2 years old and he first learned to talk, the first thing he said was change. And I was like, he was probably telling him to change his diaper and nobody listened to him. So that was really funny. But yeah, so Carol has this like attraction to her son that she gave birth to. And she doesn't know why, but she knows that she's connected to him. And she uses the word attraction. Now, I've been a mother for almost 25 years. I know you've got a child. Nobody's attracted to their kid. If you are attracted to your kid, there are words for that. And there's a registry list you eventually end up on. That is really weird. So that whole situation for me was creepy as hell. But I digress. But then we got to get back to the Avengers and how they're trashing this. So even hearing the story, they heard the story, Joe, that she basically was mind controlled.
Yep.
None of them said, You took Carol and kidnapped her and mind controlled her and had sex with her and impregnated her with your essence to get to Earth? Nobody said that. Nobody said that.
Well, there's a reason for that. Again, the mind control, it was subtle. Just a little bit. And as for the whole, mom, son, pseudo incest story, I mean, yeah, sure, it must seem problematic back in the day, but now it's cool on the hub.
No. So anyway, so long story short, the machine that Marcus wanted to make was basically to stop all the time variances from happening, because he's like, because I'm here, shit's going crazy. And he's like, I figured if I had enough time to build this machine, it would counteract all the variances and they would just cease to exist, and I can live out my life, help humanity, be the guy. Which really, whenever someone comes from another higher intellectual form of life somewhere else, or like an alien or a god, and they say I wanted to come here and help humanity, it doesn't sound, eventually what you're going to be is a dictator. So maybe this is a good thing, but he's like, but Hawkeye, he kind of jumped the gun. He was like, okay, well, Cap told me, that he doesn't suspect Marcus. We need to hold off, and nobody else is following. So I'm just gonna go do what I got to do.
Yeah, I like how Hawkeye is really the only one that's suspicious throughout this entire book, and then he's effectively, everyone's like, yeah, you're kind of a dick here.
It's like, you're being a dick.
Guy's machine. It's like,
now to be fair, as parents, I know we're comic book lovers, I know we're nerds, but we gotta put this in perspective. He did say one problematic thing. He asked Captain America when Marcus was still a little kid if he could put him in a cage. He did say that. He said, and Captain America's like, we're not putting Marcus in a cage, and Hawkeye was like, man.
Yeah, but the way Hawkeye was kind of treating the situation, he was also approaching it from the perspective of, okay, this kid's clearly not human.
Yeah, I get that, but the optics are bad. Avengers are putting a kid in a cage.
Well, the optics of this entire book are bad.
Captain America went on that world tour back in the 40s, so he knows optics are bad when you put a kid in a cage. So he was like, no, we're not putting the kid in a cage. We're going to wait and see what happens, which I guess, yes, in comic book land, that is a stupid approach, because every time you wait, bad shit happens. I get it. I understand it. But we can't put a kid in a cage, because come on now. We already have sexism, potential sexual assault. We already got incest, we got all this other stuff. We can't have, child abuse in there too. It's too much in one issue.
Yeah. It probably would have had less of clapback if they had at least said that he used the mind control machine on the Avengers too, to a degree.
That was never happened. No,
never happened.
It never happened, because it didn't happen, because they were all trash in this issue. So the reason Hawkeye shot the machine is because he saw a moment that happened. He got there a little too late. So basically, Marcus is like, Mom, you got to get away from you. And again, he goes from calling her Carol to Mom. He goes back and forth between mother and mom and Carol, which is creepy. And then he's like, but you've got to leave me. You got to go. And she's like, I can't leave you. I don't know why, but I just can't leave you. And so he knocks her out, or he does something to knock her out. And then he's carrying her. And that is when Hawkeye sees him. And he's like, oh, I knew you were trash. So then he just shoots the machine. And so Marcus is like, oh no. No, my plan. so he's like, well, I was just actually moving, Carol, our mother, out of the way, but now I'm just gonna have to kill you. So he tries to bait Hawkeye into killing him, because he'd rather be killed than go back to limbo, which is interesting. But what ends up happening is they do get all the time stuff resolved, because Marcus decides to go back to limbo. And Carol decides to go back to limbo with him, because that is called Stockholm Syndrome. I'm like, there's something.
Stockholm Syndrome, still kind of under the effects of the mind manipulation.
I mean, the man literally told you he kidnapped you, but he didn't want to brainwash you. Oh, you did me a favor. Now, you took me against my will, but you didn't want to brainwash me. You just wanted to make sure that I slept with you so you can put your essence inside my body. Okay, cool. That tracks. That's fine. That's because I mean, as a woman, I just feel like that's a really good thing. I feel like you were so considerate when you took me hostage to not use immediately the brainwash machine, and then when you turned it on, you only turned it on the slightest level, and you did it after a couple of weeks because I wasn't moving fast enough into your love zone.
Yeah, he serenaded her with Shakespeare and all that, like, you know.
Best dresses, you know, he had what did he say, Marie Antoinette, I believe, was bringing her dresses or something like that, somebody like that. And I'm like, oh, okay, but you kidnapped me. I'm like,
it's like you went to the time stream, you plucked me out just to do the hanky panky. All right.
That's literally what. And then when we did the hanky panky, you disintegrated, and then my mind was wiped. But the feelings are still there. But you see, it's so problematic because when she decides to go, everyone's like, oh, okay, cool. And then Thor takes them. He's like their Uber driver. He literally Uber drives them to the limbo and drops her off. And everyone's like, okay, cool. Now we got to deal with the aftermath of all the time versus. I'm like, you need to deal with therapy. You just sent your teammate off with a man who kidnapped and impregnated her so he could be born on your Earth. What in the hell is wrong with you?
A lot.
Oh, God, this was such a horrible story. It was such a horrible story.
Yeah. I mean, just the writing in this book alone, you just have to wonder what was everyone smoking when they thought, yeah. And then even then, DC, you turn the script into not DC, Marvel editorial, and they're all like, "Yep, that gets the stamp of approval."
This is gold. This is a gold star issue right here. We're gonna sell millions.
Or maybe they looked into the future and knew that Chris Claremont was gonna come on in a few years and just make an amazing X-Men story surrounding this particular.
Well, I mean, he had to make an amazing X-Men story because look what he had to deal with beforehand. I mean, seriously, I'm like, did they really look at this and think, we know this is trash, but maybe it'll go like their version of viral, like back in the day. Maybe this will sell so many issues because it's so bad that, it's like, when we think of stuff like the death of Superman, and they've even made videos about how the death of Superman basically got rid of death in comics, which essentially I see that because that's the one where you're like, wow, you kill this major character, you play it out, and it's like, oh, by the way, he's only asleep, yay. So just taking a power nap. We see that and people get so in their feelings about it, but then I'm like, you see this and it's like, literally, this woman was kidnapped, brainwashed, which means she was sexually assaulted. Her teammates basically were like, good job, bro. And then they're like, and even drive her back to the kidnapper's house. Oh, why? So, yeah.
Imagine if the internet existed back then.
No. But, they should have had a focus group or something. Somebody should have been in that room to say, no, you're being dumb. But, it just doesn't happen.
Well, you go back and you look, and it was like, just in the credits alone, it was like, 3 dudes on this, like Jim Shooter and stuff like that. And you're just like.
Well, that's probably because they had more people, but they saw the error of their ways and they were outvoted. So they got off that issue really quick. My name will not be attached to this crap. Like, at all. But yeah, so that is our Avengers issue 200 trash review. Trash comics, guys. I mean, trash. It is what it is. Very, very trash.
Because this book was trash.
So trashy. But yeah, if there is a comic book run or specific issue that you would like for us to trash, please put it in the comments below, because this section isn't going anywhere on this channel. We're going to continue the run because I myself have at least 13 comic book runs that I could talk about in this particular section of trash comics, and I would love to know what you think. Again, make sure to head over to Joe's Geek Show, subscribe, like all the content, because we like friends and he makes really good videos and he does a lot of comic reviews, so hey, give him some love. And also, guys, be on the lookout for some more comic book spotlights. I am working on them. I have them. I'm just trying to bank them up so I can just keep releasing them on a schedule instead of being pressured to do them one at a time. That's why it's taking so long. But I got them coming, guys, so they are coming. All right, guys, Joe, thank you so much for being in this video with me. And And if you have not read Avengers 200, please check it out. It's a little retro. It's completely stupid, and it's trash. But I would love to know what you think.
Yeah, just don't pick it up at all.
I don't even.
It's that bad.
Just believe us when we say it's really, really bad. But we want to know your comments, so put them in the comments below. And as always, guys, I cannot wait for you to approach the nerd. Bye, guys.
Thank you for watching my video. I really appreciate it, but hey, the party doesn't have to stop now. Click on one of these videos and keep it going.